Hello everybody, Keith here again. Today I'm going to do my What's in Bloom at the end of the month video, and it's going to be a little bit of a long one because it's surprisingly enough I've got quite a few in bloom this month again. So I'll make a start and I'll get on. One of my no ID phals, only a small one, but I think that's gorgeous. Somebody suggested it might be a hybrid called Beatrice the other day. I looked it up online, I'm not sure. Mine seemed a little bit darker than Beatrice does on the photos I've seen, but it could be. But nevertheless, whether it's got an ID or not, that's lovely, and I don't think, named or not, you could get a much nicer little phal than that. And talking of lovely little no ID Phallianopsis, what about this one? I bought this in March 2019 in Salisbury. I actually bought it for a glass jar. I got it from Marks and Spencer's. It was in a glass jar. Not terribly expensive when you looked at the price of the jars anyway. And I just think it's gorgeous. And it's very vigorous. It's a lovely plant in every way. And it tried to flower, and Muggins managed to knock the main part of the spike off. So this flowering is on a branch. And as if it couldn't deal with that, now we've got another spike coming, which will obviously kick in later on, but it's doing really well. That's a lovely little plant. Small plants, well, Dendrobiums don't come an awful lot smaller than that, I don't think. This is a ligophyllum. You've seen this one before. It's been flowering for ages, and it's just going on and on and on. The big cane is close to finishing. There's about one more bud coming, but as I turn it round, you'll see that there are other canes that are coming into bud. So I would say on the whole, this is a very happy little bunny, and I look forward to this being part of my collection for a long time to come. Right, it seems to be flowering season, or second flowering season in most cases, for Myopathy Pedali collection, or most of them. One of them isn't doing. This is Mordii femma. Quite what difference that makes, I'm not sure. It's another really easy plant to grow. If anybody's interested in growing paths, hasn't got a lot of room, something that'll just sit on a kitchen windowsill and do its own thing, then Mordii is what you need. You can see it's very vigorous. We've got a number of unflowered fans, and two of the fans it's grown this year are flowering now. This one only seems to put one flower up per stem, which is fairly common. Quite pretty with the mottled leaves. So I've had that 2 or 3 years now. Very reliable performer. Not quite fully open yet. That hood will go right up. And at the opposite end of the size scale, this is my American hybrid, what some people call a Bulldog Path. And again, like the no ID Phallianopsis, some people get quite snotty about these. Probably because they're too easy to grow, if you know what I mean. They're not a great challenge. Well, fine, but if you're just starting out and you need something that's going to grow for you, and not take an awful lot of looking after, again, this is sat on our kitchen windowsill since about 2015, and it's grown very well. It's got 2 points of growth. It grows both ways, and we've got a bud coming on that one, and there's another bud just down inside that fan as well. So the only drawback to this one is its size. It's quite big. It's probably nearly 3 feet across if those leaves were straight out. But as I say, it takes absolutely no growing. If you can grow Phallianopsis on a windowsill, you can grow one of these. No trouble at all. More paths, not quite open yet, but this one is Delenatii, and this is the standard version, one which I've had for a year or so, and it's flowered now. This is the second time of flowering. Now, if you look at the underside of these leaves, you will see that there is some green showing through, and where the colour in the foliage stops, there is a rim which is green, and this is the vinicola that I bought from Lawrence Hobbs. It arrived this week, and on this one the back of the leaf is virtually black, and that rim around the edge of the leaves again is very dark purple. So that's vinicola, and that's the standard one. It's got more red pigment in it. The flower is very similar, obviously it's the same species, but on this one it's much darker. And if they've got a lot of red pigment in, that's quite common that they show up like that. This is my only black hair type, and if anybody is wondering why they're known as black hair types, you've only got to look at this cane, which is only just topped out, and you'll see it actually covered in black hairs. They are supposed to be more difficult to grow than the noble A types, which they resemble, but they're not part of. This one I got in March 2019 from a Taiwanese vendor at the Bournemouth Society 60th anniversary show, and it's grown steadily, and this is the first time it's flowered for me, and these flowers last 2 months plus, anything up to about 10 weeks. So the fact I haven't got a mass blooming, and I might get that another year if I'm lucky, I'll take that, because even an odd flower, 1 or 2 out at a time, when they're as pretty as that, I'll take that every time. Twinkles. Who doesn't love a twinkle? Very, very easy plants to grow, but typical Oncidium, they've got to dry out between waterings. I've got this red one and a white one. This did not do very well last year. It seemed to need to recover from whatever it had been subject to before. This year I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 spikes, much better than last year. I think I had 2. But this one, which I think is Red Fantasy, it just says red. As easy to grow, provided you've got a free draining compost. Yes, they drink, like a lot of Oncidiums, they drink. but they want to dry out. And they're not vigorous enough to cope with a water retentive medium. This, of course, is nothing to do with me. This is the Masdevallia Patricia Hill that I got from Lawrence Hobbs. Again, it arrived this week. I've changed the way I was going to keep it. I put it into a glass jar, but the jar forced the leaves to grow tall, whereas you see videos and photographs of mazzies and the leaves tend to come out with the leaves held pretty much horizontally. I've got some growths that are yellow and I have to cut those off. I had a bit of a scare earlier today because I saw something that looked like mould. I could find white furry mould. I sprayed it with hydrogen peroxide and I've looked around it and I came across these little, how are you going to see that, little blue pellets, which I think are slug pellets. But I've found this before, when you put slug pellets on a wet surface, they can attract mould, whatever's in them can attract mould. But having said that, it's still opening flowers. There were 4 open the other day. That one's opened since and is trying to straighten itself out. We've got another one there, which is just opening. I find it quite interesting because this one, which only opened yesterday, is very pale and the stripes are quite distinct, and this one, which is older, is a much deeper colour and the stripes are less obvious, but still a very pretty plant. So what have I done with the keeping of it? Well, I went out and bought a cereal bowl. It's got gravel in the bottom which I can keep moist, but at least, although you've got the humidity coming up, you've got the ability for the plant to display itself as it would wish. So we'll take that as the first batch and I'll come back and we'll have another go in a minute. And we'll now do the final batch of plants. There's some big ones in here to look at as well. There's a couple I will show you first that are beginning to get very tired. We're not going to see these next month, I'm pretty sure. This is Zygonissia Orion Blue Angel. It's been out quite a long time now. Just does its thing. It's growing nicely. There's your plants. There's a new growth coming here. So that's a plant that's perfectly happy and doing its own thing. Another one that's rather tired this month is Alessara Marfix Renaissance Coral. Again, been out for a little while, but still very pretty, but definitely on the way down. So thank you very much, babes, but you've nearly done, but I can see a new growth at the base of this pseudo bulb. So again, this is a plant that is pretty happy in my environment. One that seems to have been in flower forever is Minimark. Those of you that have watched my channel for a while have noticed that I've staked the spike because it was trailing all over and getting longer and longer and longer, and you can see it's still extending. and the spike's branched. So I've even got more flowers to come. What an absolutely amazing plant this one is. You never seem to get a mass flowering. The last 2 or 3 spikes it's had, I've all given you this this progressive flowering with a couple open at a time, and they drop and they're replaced by others. The one I entered for the Black Friday virtual orchid show, this is Milton Indian Bartley Schwartz Highland. I always want to say Bartley James Harvest, because it was the pop group from the 1960s, 70s when I were a lad. Yeah. But it was, this is another really nice, easy plant to grow, quite vigorous. These 2 beautiful spikes this time with some more buds still to open up. It's a beautiful flower. It's got a nice sweet sort of vanilla chocolatey type smell, and really for the kind of thing you can pick up in garden centres and the like. What more could you want? I mean, it's just got everything, hasn't it? It's, you know, really couldn't wish for any better. And again, most of the year that lives on a windowsill. At the moment it's too big with the spikes on, so it lives down here in the conservatory, where the cooler nights don't seem to bother it at all. My spring dream, got it from IKEA about 4 years ago now. Just as a no ID white Noble A type. Seems to flower more or less when it wants. I don't do anything that much with it. I cut back on the water only as it doesn't use it. It seems to slow down after a bit, and then I just go around once a week and put my finger in the pot, as I always do, and check it. And at the moment this is using very little water indeed, but we've got this short spike, a short cane that's been in flower for a while, starting to go over, but this tall one, which is flowered before, is now flowering at nodes where it hasn't flowered before, and I've even got one right the way down at the bottom, and I'm not sure they often flower that low down. So that's okay, and there's another big cane here, completely unflowered, that hopefully will flower, I don't know, next year perhaps. Okay, one you must all be familiar with now. Come here, you brute. This is a big beast, this is. This is Phallianopsis pink Twilight. Not a lot to say about it, really. The mass blooming on the spike is nearly over, but it's still extending, and we've still got plenty more buds to come. So this is a plant that really doesn't know when to stop flowering. I just have to keep making sure I'm on top of all the feeding needs, because I don't want to lose this one. And as I've said recently on another video, I've got another one which is coming into flower that was nearly as big as this, and put out flowers as big as this, that absolutely exhausted itself while I was not as experienced as I am now. Class myself as an expert, but you learn, don't you, by your mistakes. This seems to be, by comparison, quite healthy. So that one will be around for a little while yet. Okay, I've tried to save the best till last. Can I actually show you just how gorgeous this thing is? This is Oncidium Twinkle Pacific Sunspots, and I bought this with the Marfitch Renaissance Coral and the Bartley Schwartz Highland. They were £3.50 each from a friend's market store because I bought 3 at once. This is ridiculously vigorous. It drinks water. All Oncidiums like their water. This one, I think if I threw it in our pond it would thrive. But I've not seen a plant flower like that. None of my other orchids have ever flowered like that. This is the first rebloom. I got it about June 2019. The flower is quite pretty. It opens sort of, what can you say, sort of, take that one, almost sort of a two-tone orange. But when it's been open for a bit, like this one, you get these little stripes develop on it, which I think makes it even prettier. So, what a plant to finish with. If you've got the room, get one of these. There is nothing easier to keep than this. You've just got to keep it wet enough. Not soaking, not soggy. It's got, like I've said before with the twinkles and what have you, it needs to dry out between waterings or get very close to drying out. But it does drink, and it drinks a lot. And you see the size of the pseudobulbs. This thing has to absorb a lot of nutrient to build these pseudobulbs up. But if you can get it right, my word, what an absolute pleasure it is to grow something like that. So, that's all my plants in flower. I've got quite a few more that should be in flower next time, and I've got some I'll be really pleased to show you because they haven't flowered for several years. That's one of my Dendrobium Phalaenopsis. I bought it a few years ago now, reflowered it, repotted it, and got it completely wrong. I am desperately trying to plant my orchids deeper in the pot. I got into an unwitting habit, it certainly wasn't deliberate, of packing everything in, and the plant would come up and you'd end up with the plant high over the compost. And sometimes it worked anyway and sometimes it didn't. And I'm coming more and more to the realisation that they need to be much closer to the compost than I'd been doing it. And that one struggled, and being inexperienced at the time, I didn't recognise it was in trouble. I left it too long, and when I unpotted it, it broke into 3 parts. 2 decent sized pieces, 1 small one. The small one is still not at its best, but it's starting to grow. The 2 bigger pieces are both flowering this year. It'll be the first time in at least 3 years since I've seen them. And it's a lovely pale sort of lilac-y purple colour. So it'll be quite nice, and hopefully I can see what it is, or work out what it is. Something I can't really show you at the moment. I've got some flower spikes on 2 of my cymbidiums, but they're a bit too big to start mauling about, so I'll wait until they're open before I start doing anything with those. So thank you very much for watching. I will look forward to seeing you in the very near future. Thanks a lot. Bye.